I turned to look at myself in the dressing room mirror. Honestly, it wasn't so bad. The sweater and skirt felt soft against my skin, and I liked how everything flowed gently. At least from the calves to the neck, my legs and head were another story. If you looked closely, you'd see the sweater hung in a straight line instead of accentuating a more flattering shape. I snapped out of my thoughts when I saw Catherine grinning at me. See, now that isn't so bad, is it? I smiled shyly. I guess these will do. Not yet, she said. You'll need tights, shoes, and maybe some jewelry if you want to do this right. I'll get your tights while you get dressed. She started walking away but turned around, adding, unless you want to wear those home. She smiled broadly as she walked over to the hosiery racks. I retreated back into the dressing room to change into my own clothes. When I brought everything to the counter, Catherine handed me a slim box. Here are your tights, hun, she said. They're chocolate brown, so they'll complement your skirt perfectly. Thanks, I muttered, feeling a bit overwhelmed. I'd love to see you when you've got everything together, she added with a smile. I think you'd be a doll. As she rang up my purchase, the bill came to more than I expected. This wasn't cheap. I handed her my credit card, and while she processed it, she said, "There's a store about 5 doors down called Under It All where you can pick up your underwear. I don't think the department stores will have what you need in your size. And there are about half a dozen shoe stores, I'm sure you'll find something nice at one of them." She bagged up my outfit and handed me a credit card application. Here's a 15% off coupon for your next purchase. My next purchase? I said, confused. Thanks, I said quickly. You've been very helpful. Thank you. Now, you have a nice day. And hun, relax. You're not the first man I've seen in here, and you won't be the last, she said with a gracious smile as I left, unsure whether I should feel relieved or more embarrassed. I turned in the direction of Under It All and walked slowly toward the door. Before I reached it, I noticed a pair of mannequins in the window, one dressed in a burgundy bra and panty set, and the other in a teddy made from the same burgundy material with black lace accents. Through the glass, I could see racks of nightgowns, bras, teddies, slips, and more. The store wasn't empty either. There was a woman shopping with her teenage daughter, a couple of women in business suits, an older woman by herself, and a young mother with a toddler in hand. I also noticed a tall, trim middle-aged woman in a flowery dress who seemed to be running the place, along with a couple of young women in their 20s who were probably the shop assistants. As I stood outside the door, losing my nerve, the woman in the flowery dress poked her head out of the shop, glanced at the shopping bag from Laura Brown's that hung from my hand, and said, "You must be the gentleman Catherine just called about." I nodded and followed her as she walked toward the counter at the back of the store. It was packed tightly with customers, and as I moved through the aisles, I brushed past soft fabrics, feeling like a bull in a china shop. A few customers glanced at me, but I couldn't tell what they were thinking. "Now then, how can I help you?" she asked. I told her about the bet and mentioned that I had already bought a skirt and sweater, but now I needed some underwear. "Do you know what you're looking for, sir?" I shook my head. "Not really, no. I guess I'll need a bra and some underwear." I couldn't bring myself to say the word panties. "Well, that's all right," she said. "You probably don't know your size." She measured around my chest with a tape measure. I was thankful my back was to the store, as I couldn't imagine what anyone might think of this. "Looks like a 40, she said to herself. She raised the tape a couple of inches and measured again, but this time she wrinkled her nose and grunted softly. "Were you planning on having breasts, sir?" she asked, though I could tell she was trying not to laugh. "Small, large?" She glanced at me, her lips trying hard to stay straight. How was I supposed to answer that? I felt like I was sinking deeper into a hole with every word. "I don't really know. I hadn't thought about it. I guess I'll go with whatever you think is best." "I figured you might say that," she muttered, almost to herself, a hint of a smile breaking through. "I need to measure you again." She moved the tape around my hips, then my waist. "You're a 7 or 8 in undies." She turned to one of the sales assistants. Linda, could you check if we have either Lace Fantasies or Pretty All Day in a white soft cup, 40B and 40C, and matching undies in sizes 7 and 8 for this gentleman? Then, turning to me, she said, "Excuse me for a moment while I help these ladies." I saw the woman with her teenage daughter trying to stare at me without looking like they were staring. I desperately looked around for a hole to crawl into. After a couple of minutes, Linda tapped me on the shoulder and unloaded an armful of white lace onto the counter. I couldn't find a 40B in the styles Andrea asked for, but I picked out some others. "These are really pretty," she said, arranging one of the bras over a pair of matching undies. She was right. The undies had a delicate lace V pattern on the front that was echoed around the legs. The bra had a similar design on the cups. I couldn't help but imagine Lauren wearing something like this. Linda smiled sweetly. "I'm sure whoever you're giving these to will love them." At that moment, Andrea returned, picked up the undies, and held them up to my pants to gauge the size. I could see Linda blush a little and stifle a giggle. "I still can't tell," Andrea said, holding up another pair of the same style in a different color, shaking her head. "Well, you'll need to try them on to check the size," she added. She handed me the bra and started steering me toward the dressing room. I thought this was going a bit too far. It was bad enough that I was going to wear a bra at home with my wife, but in a store? No way. I started to object, but Andrea wouldn't have it. "Don't be silly, the dressing room is private. Use the one on the right," she said, pushing me toward it with the bra in my hand. I closed the door behind me and took off my shirt and undershirt. I slipped my arms through the straps as I had seen Lauren do countless times, but I couldn't reach behind me to hook it. As I struggled, I overheard Andrea explaining things to Linda. "That's so cute," I heard Linda squeal. "So, he's already got like a skirt and stuff." I didn't hear Andrea's reply, but Linda must have approved, as I heard her exclaim, "Oh, wow, that's so neat." I decided to cheat. I took the bra off, turned it around so the hooks were in front, hooked it up, and then twisted it back the right way. I was trying to get my arms inside the straps when I heard Andrea say, "If he's going to wear tights, how did she know that? Had the sales lady from Laura Brown's told them about my purchases?" "Pretty undies like these are going to be wasted on him," Linda said, "since he doesn't have the hips or waist. Maybe these would work better." I didn't know what Linda was showing Andrea, but I was having a hard time with my own struggle. "I think you're right, Linda," Andrea said. "These might work better. I wonder if he's having trouble in there." I heard her muffling a giggle, and she added, "Maybe I should check." She knocked on the door and walked in without waiting for me to respond. "Oh my, you seem to be having some difficulty here. Let me show you." I froze. "First thing is, you haven't adjusted the straps properly. You're going to need as much length here as you can get." She fiddled with the little buckle-like thing on the straps, then pulled the cups down a bit. "That should be easier now," she said, helping me guide my arms through the straps. "You usually put your arms in first and then hook it, but I bet you hooked it in front first, right?" Andrea said with a knowing smile. I just nodded. "I thought so. You'll get better with practice," she added. I was left wondering what she meant by that. She smoothed out the straps, tugged on the cups, adjusted the back, and ran her finger around the edges. "This fits well, so I think we've got the right size. Unfortunately, we don't have this size in a smaller cup," she noted, tweaking the empty cup. "What are you planning to do about that?" "I'll probably just stuff it with something," I mumbled. "Socks don't work very well," she said. "They get lumpy, and they just don't look right. We have mastectomy forms, but they get very expensive." I blanched at the thought. "What you can do is buy a pair of knee-highs and fill them with about a cup and a half of birdseed. Or, you could even use a baggie filled with the same amount of water. Both will fill these out nicely. Stay right here. I'll be right back," she said, leaving the door to the dressing room wide open. I lunged toward the doorknob just as a teenage girl walked past toward her own dressing room. I nearly died of embarrassment. A couple of minutes later, Andrea knocked. "Are you decent?" she asked, but didn't wait for an answer before coming in. "This is called a waist nipper," she explained, holding up a girdle with a high waist. "Wear your tights under it, and they won't sag. But more importantly, it'll give you a little definition here," she said, placing her hands around my waist. "This is an XL, and it should fit, but I think you should try it on." She handed me the girdle and left again, this time closing the door behind her. I was way out of my league. Not only could I not figure out which end was the front, but I couldn't imagine how I could put this on over my boxer shorts. I stood there, holding the girdle awkwardly until Andrea knocked again and opened the door without waiting for a reply. "Having trouble?" she asked. "Let me show you." She took the girdle from me and demonstrated. "They go on this way," she said, guiding me through the motions. "Wiggle them up your legs, and when you reach the top, pull up the waist. Then hook all these hooks, and you're all set. By the way, these won't work with the undies you're wearing now. I brought you some new ones. You'll have to buy them, but they're on sale, and I'll give you a discount at the register." I slipped out of my boxers and into the panties, which fit like a second skin. Then I slid the girdle up, pulled up the legs, and attached the hooks just as she instructed. It took some effort, but when it was all done, it didn't feel all that uncomfortable. In fact, I was more than a little excited, though I wasn't sure if that was obvious when Andrea came back into the dressing room without knocking. "This is just about perfect," she said, tugging a little on the legs and running her fingers around the top band. "Don't you think so?" I nodded mutely. "Oh, come on. Don't be such a fuddy-duddy," she said, grinning. "This will give you a nice girlish figure. Who knows? You might even enjoy it. Get dressed and bring your things to the counter, and we'll ring you up." As soon as she left, I got out of the girdle as quickly as I could, though it wasn't that quick, as I was still struggling with the hooks. Eventually, I was back in my flannels and jeans, standing in front of Linda at the cash register with my new items. She took the bra, girdle, and undies from me and folded them neatly before placing them back in their boxes. "Will that be all, sir?" she asked. Yes," I replied. "Would you like to join our bra and underwear club?" she asked, almost conspiratorially. "Buy 10 panties or 5 bras, and get one free." I just stared at her, taken aback. "It's a promotion we're running right now," she added, with a wink. "But it's a really cool deal if you're interested." "I don't think so," I mumbled, trying to stay composed. She rang up the sale and handed me my purchases. "Thank you very much, and we hope to see you again soon, sir," she said, beaming. I muttered my thanks and quickly headed out of the store, trying not to knock anything over. Once outside, I took a deep breath, feeling a wave of relief. I wasn't sure whether I was more relieved that it was over or that I hadn't completely embarrassed myself. I hadn't thought I could go through with it, but I had. Catherine, Andrea, and Linda were all nice, and my essential parts hadn't fallen off when I tried on the skirt or bra. Maybe this wasn't going to be as bad as I thought. Next, I assessed what I still needed to do. I needed shoes, and I had to figure out something for my hair and makeup. I couldn't remember if Catherine had recommended any shoe stores, so I started walking around the mall. The first shoe store I passed was all athletic shoes, and the next had a clerk who looked like Al Bundy, leaning on the counter. I couldn't imagine asking him for help, so I kept walking. A few stores down, I saw one that looked promising. There were women's shoes in the window, both casual and dress styles, and 2 women in their 20s working inside. One had short black hair, and the other had longish brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. The store had customers, so I hesitated, but eventually walked in and started looking around. After what felt like an eternity, the woman with black hair asked, "Do you need some help?" I walked over to the counter. "I think I do," I said, ready for whatever came next. "I had a bet with my wife, and now I have to watch this Sunday's game in drag," I said, raising the 2 bags in my hands. "All I need now is shoes." "Oh, really?" said the woman with black hair, raising an eyebrow. "This could be fun," she added, turning to her colleague. Do you know what you're looking for? Why did everyone ask that? I thought, though I didn't say it aloud. No, not exactly. Whatever fits, and whatever goes with what I've already got, I guess. Can we see? She asked. Sure, I suppose. I handed her the bag from Laura Brown's. She pulled out the skirt and held it up against my waist. I wasn't expecting this. There were no racks for cover, just a wide glass storefront open to the entire mall. I quickly backed away, but she placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, I didn't want to embarrass you. I just wanted to see what we have to work with, she explained. Okay, I nodded.